Welcome to Elemental Fun, a historical and cultural look of the elements of the periodic table. Hello and welcome to Elemental Fun. My name is Grace.
My name is Cindy.
And we're here to talk about a pretty important element.
Just a little bit.
A little important to us.
Breathing.
What?
That would be oxygen.
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 So fresh and so clean.
So fresh and so clean.
Double bonding, I mean.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice one.
Thanks.
Yeah. Oxygen does like to double bond.
I know that's
True.
Yes.
I know.
That's why I sang it.
I was telling them.
Oh,
They may not know that.
that's true. We're going to learn
That's why
about
we're doing this podcast.
I apologize if you hear coughing. I have the fabulous 100-day cough.
That's from the doctor.
The doctor calls it that. So if I start coughing, it's probably because Sydney made me laugh.
Sorry.
And then I'm hacking. I will mute my mic, but you'll probably hear it through Cindy's. So I apologize in advance. We're talking about oxygen today.
Yes. In 1774.
Good year.
Great year. They had some nice oxygen levels there.
It was interesting because, yes, 1774, Joseph Priestley.
In Wiltshire.
England.
And also
He-
independently.
Yes, Joseph Priestley isolated it.
Mm-hmm.
And
So did Carl Scheel.
Wilhelm Scheel
Oh, hi, Carl.
in Uppsala,
yes.
Uppsala, Sweden.
Sweden. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So they both did it at the same time, separately.
yes, and the interesting thing is, like, they kind of give them both credit because it's like, well, here's the thing, like, they didn't really know, like, what all these different elements were elements.
right.
And so they were like,
I found something. I found something.
yeah.
Yay.
Although I have it that Wilhelm Scheel was in 1771. So
Oh,
heard he
I
did it
think,
before
yeah,
that.
he might have done it before. But, like, yeah, they just didn't know, like, oh, I found something. But they don't. It takes a while in science for things to be like, okay, no, that is a different element. And now we're going to name it.
Yeah, well, Joseph Priestley called it something completely different, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I don't have that written down. for some
I
reason.
actually read an interesting thing in Periodic Tales
Mhm.
where
Oh, that book.
the book that our podcast is based off of.
Hey, look at that.
There was a Polish alchemist that in 1621 also, like, I either isolated it or he contributed it to the use of pioneering submarines in crossing the Thames. And so I don't think he actually gets any credit for it, but some people that are really into alchemists say that he also
had to
did it,
name Well,
quite a bit earlier.
And you know what? I actually, I was like, I knew I wrote this down somewhere. In 1608, Cornelius Drebbel.
I thought you were going to say Cornelius Fudge.
No, but we're reading that right now, and for my son, yeah, we're in book 6 now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I'm reading book 3 right now,
Sweet.
just for fun.
You know, you've already read it before, just so
I
they
have.
know.
Oh,
Yeah.
This is Harry Potter we're talking about, by the way.
If you didn't know who Cornelius Fudge was,
If
sorry.
you are someone who has been living
Not
in
a
a
Potterhead.
hole,
Well, they might not know Cornelius Fudge if they do, because I mean, he's a big character, but
yeah,
he's not
if you just
like
only seen the
right,
movies,
cursory.
I guess. But
Yeah, he's not really big.
we're
no.
staying really focused tonight.
Okay.
I can tell.
This
Anyways,
is good.
Cornelius
Drebbel, not Fudge,
I want
showed that
fudge.
heating saltpeter, which is potassium nitrate, released a gas, but he didn't know what that was, but it was oxygen. So that was 1608.
So-
and then you're right. In 1774 was Priestley. 1771 was Scheel, but the account was not published until 1777.
Oh.
So it's like, right, you publish, you perish. It's true. And then Antoine Lavoisier claimed to
who
discover
is
it.
called the father of modern chemistry?
He said it should be named oxygene, which means acid forming, because he thought it was the basis of all acids. And
Because of the oxides.
right, yeah. And we'll talk about oxygen's unique properties a little bit later. But in the 1500s, they even said Da Vinci saw that
Da Vinci
saw that a fraction of air is is consumed in respiration and combustion, or something like that. Basically, in the 1500s, Da Vinci saw that there was like something funky about that.
Yeah,
and didn't know.
a lot of people noticed that like when oxygen was released towards flames or anything like that, it made the flames grow brighter and it made
Right.
them
Something
burn
in
hotter.
air was doing that.
Something in air was doing that. But should we go back to the beginning? Like,
the beginning.
like, so this was when it was, quote, discovered. And although it is the third most abundant element in the universe,
that's true.
we only had traces of it, mere traces of it in the planet before photosynthesis started happening 2.5 billion years ago. What?
Evolution. Evolution.
Want to talk about that?
Yeah, I love evolution. I'm a biologist, so it's one of my favorite subjects. Yeah, so about 2 billion years ago is when oxygen first appeared, and that was due to photosynthesis. Due. Why are you laughing at me? Doo-doo. I was saying D-U-E, not doo-doo.
I know, but I teach second grade, so I do.
That's right. My son today just made up a whole song about poop and pee.
Well, you know, if you watch
Funny.
Magic School Bus, they have a whole song, a whole episode about poop a dunk a doody. They do a disco song.
Disco.
Poop a dunk a doody. Anyway, so
Okay. I digress. So 2 billion years ago, due to
okay.
photosynthesis of not plants but blue-green algae,
Right.
which is called cyanobacteria, which is a misnomer because it's not bacteria.
It's not the back door of a cafeteria.
No. It's algae.
Right.
Right. So you'll still see the term cyanobacteria, but it's mainly called blue-green algae now. So that's when the reason why that we are around and mammals are around and all that was because of photosynthesis happening first that made the air around us breathable. Because it was
Basically,
not
the
enough
waste
oxygen.
of this algae made all life on Earth possible.
The waste of all plants and algae.
Yes, but it started.
It started the algae, and actually the more than 50% of the oxygen we breathe actually comes from the algae in the oceans, not the plants, not plants on land.
That's not surprising because most
But
of
it's all
our
microscopic, which is just crazy. You know how much of it there has to be.
it's gotta be a lot.
It's a lot. So it's pretty amazing. But yeah, what we breathe, cellular respiration, that process is the exact almost the exact opposite of photosynthesis. So
Right.
the waste that we give them, they take in. The waste that they give off, we take in.
Yeah.
It's
the cycle of
The
life.
cycle. So what's interesting is, of course, we think of air. You think a lot of people think like, oh, oxygen, right? That's what we need. But the air that we breathe is only 21% oxygen.
Yes.
Most of it's actually nitrogen, which we already talked about in our nitrogen episode. But what I found interesting is that the levels, right? So at 17%, you breathing becomes difficult for those that are unaccustomed to living at like that thin of air.
So like high altitude.
Higher. I'm not sure exactly where the 17% would be, but I'm sure at some high altitudes you get to that point because even if you go to Mile High Stadium in Denver, people who are not accustomed to the thinner air, you start to.
I remember just being so tired.
Yeah.
In Denver.
Yeah, you're not getting as much oxygen.
I went there and I was like, I'm gonna run around the block of my hotel, and I ran like halfway around. I was like, oh my god,
That's good.
I'm gonna go take a nap.
Not enough oxygen.
That was before I had kids.
Mm-hmm. Now it's just like
Now I just want to take a nap anytime.
Anytime.
I can be at sea level, which I am.
And then actually above 25% oxygen content, many organic compounds become highly flammable. So it's not necessarily that oxygen is flammable; it makes things around it more flammable. So the 21% is right in that sweet spot, right in the middle of not enough and way too much.
There's a sweet spot.
Sweet spot. And I think there's something else about that evolution. Ooh, that's my paper. That was my paper.
Well, let's talk about. Should we talk about ozone?
Yeah, but just a sec for that. So I did find my thing. Pause. So in a 2014 study in the Nature Geoscience, a 2.95 billion year old rock found in South Africa contained oxides that required free oxygen to form. And the rocks were originally in shallow seas, which they figure is the oxygen from photosynthesis, accumulated in the marine environment about 500 million years before it accumulated in the atmosphere.
So explain that to my dumb brain.
Basically, so it wasn't, you think, we think of the, that whole process of the, green plants and flowering plants and stuff like that, creating the oxygen that we breathe. But what they're saying here is that the oxides that they found in the oceans there mean that oxygen started to become more present in the oceans before it happened in the air.
Oh.
So it started, again, everything started off in the ocean.
I was going to say, it kind of makes sense because like the algae was in the water.
Right.
Not, there's no land. Is there land algae? I don't think so. Isn't kind of the definition of algae mean that it's like water?
No, I think you had to be moist. You could still have some that are moist. It's just one of those words. But what's funny is that we think of, evolution and these, extinctions and stuff like the things that are happening and these great things that, all plants and animals boomed after oxygen became present in the atmosphere. But we forget that originally because there was not much oxygen at all,
right.
Most of the microbes there were anaerobic, which means without oxygen. So they're obligate anaerobes, which means that they die in the presence of oxygen. So really, like the first really big mass extinction was the extinction of all the anaerobes when oxygen became more present.
How tragic. And no one ever talks
Nobody
about
talks
that
about those poor
extinction.
anaerobes. But that's probably that buildup of oxygen killed a ton of them.
We need to have an open conversation about the anaerobes.
That's right. The only ones left had to go into hiding.
Hashtag never forget.
They had to go into hiding. And they're still there.
They're still hiding?
Well, yeah, because they have to hide from oxygen.
Oh. Where are they hiding?
In the deep soil or deep down in the ocean, deep down where there's not much oxygen. So if you're looking for anaerobic bacteria, you go that deep, dark, rich soil that it has a lot of the anaerobes down there.
But does it lose its deep, dark richness once you bring it up into the air?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's still dark, but that's just where the soil is. It's dark.
But the
down
anaerobes
there.
die.
The anaerobes die, yeah. Once they're...
So you're a murderer.
Well, if it's an obligate anaerobe, if it's a facultative anaerobe, then it can do oxygen or non-oxygen. Okay. But the obligate ones, they will die. So you do kill some. Just not all of them.
This is like way beyond my pay scale. Because I get
totally paid for this.
Totally. I get paid in nothing.
You get paid in psyche cash.
Psyche cash?
Psyche cash.
I like that.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's what they told me when I was going to get my teacher certificate and stuff. They're like, you don't do this for the money. You do it for the psyche cash. And I was like, no, I need a paycheck. I mean, I love the students, and yes, that's great, but
I actually need to get paid.
Little things. It's a job. Yeah. But yes, so that was, evolution. So there, oxygen became present.
Yes.
Because of those microbes. So like your microbes. Hashtag love microbes.
Hashtag algae for life.
Algae for life. Literally.
No, really, like there'd be no life.
Totally.
Without algae.
So oxygen is one of those diatomic elements we were talking about. So you find it by itself. It's always attached to another oxygen. So you see O2. So that leads into the ozone.
Ozone, which is
O3, right? So ozone, O2 plus that's what.
So let's explain. Yeah, let's explain what ozone. So ozone is three oxygen atoms
bonded together.
They're bonded, trifecta.
Happy.
And what does the ozone do for us, Cindy?
It shields us from the terrible UV light that the sun's trying to kill us with.
That's why when they say, "Oh no, there's a hole in the ozone layer," they're talking about the fact that
the shield that we
the
have.
shield that keeps us from burning alive,
keeps us safe.
Yeah, we kind of need it. It's kind of important. So not only do we need oxygen to be able to breathe, because the oxygen goes into our lungs and then it goes into our blood, and then from there it does
goes somewhere
stuff.
The oxygen goes into our lungs.
That's as far as I go.
And then goes on to your hemoglobin.
Yes, hemoglobin.
Right? With has iron on it.
Right.
So it's important. So if you're anemic, you don't have enough iron, which means you don't have enough oxygen, which is why you're tired.
Oh. That makes sense.
I know. That's why I love science.
I just thought they were weak.
No. It's all back to the oxygen.
It makes sense.
So the oxygen goes in your blood, and then it goes to your organs, and your organs and everything that is trying to do work needs to take that oxygen to create energy, or ATP. And in that process, the oxygen gets taken up, and then they switch it out for carbon dioxide. Your blood takes that carbon dioxide back to your lungs. You exhale the carbon dioxide and do the whole process.
And water vapor, right?
Yeah. That's the one thing that's a little bit different between photosynthesis and cellular respiration. Exactly where the water is, but yeah. So.
Yeah. So.
So yeah. And the other thing about the history of it, which this is what I was trying to find before. It said that there was, let's see, life was not until 600 million years ago. So the oxygen came around, 2 billion years or whatever, but life we really didn't see as we know it until 600 million years ago. And they found in a 2014 study that there were sponges that breathe in 0.5% to 4% of what is in the atmosphere today. So they can breathe in like very minimal oxygen. And so this means that something else contributed to the rise of the animals, not just the presence of oxygen, because these guys could do it without the oxygen that we assume is how all plants and animals kind of came to be. So that there is the oxygen levels that we have may have been necessary to reach today's levels of life.
Yes.
But life could exist before the oxygen that we were thinking of.
That we need.
So there's more to animal evolution than just the oxygen in good supply, which is interesting.
So it's not just the algae that made it possible. Something else. Do we know what that else is?
We don't know. So this was in 2014 that just realized that. So they're like, whoa, that's cool. These sponges can breathe like nothing. So we're not sure what. So then they were able to evolve before.
Mysteries. Ooh.
Yep. And they would believe that sponges were similar to some of the first animals on Earth because they're so simple. You know that you can put a sponge through like a filter and then it'll like reform itself.
Sponges are
so cool.
They're pretty.
So cool.
Pretty awesome. Yeah. Well. I have one more thing about the oxygen in the air. In the atmosphere. I'm sure you have it too.
Maybe.
Do you know what chemical creates those beautiful lights in the aurora borealis?
Oxygen.
It's oxygen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you're like, wow, I've seen the aurora borealis and it is pretty.
It is pretty.
Who can you think? Oxygen. Oxygen in the stratosphere?
I'm really bad at the spheres. Atmosphere versus stratosphere versus ionosphere. It's one of those spheres.
This will make you feel better. I was reading about the lithosphere, and I was like, which one of those is it in the air? I was like, it's not. It's the ground.
Yeah.
Okay. But it has the word sphere in it.
Sphery.
So
that's to be there.
Round. Sphere means round.
That's true.
So if you ever feel bad about not knowing your atmosphere, just remember that I was like
a rock.
I was like, oh, the lithosphere, is that like above the atmosphere? I was like, read about 2 more words and went, oh wait, it's the ground.
Just kidding.
Nah, I know my stuff. Not really. I don't teach geology. It's not part of the.
I don't.
It's not
geology.
part of the state standards for my grade that I teach. So
it's not. Yeah. Somebody else teach that later.
Not a priority
in life.
Yeah. Should we talk about?
Yep. It's in the weight of it. It's interesting. It weighs, the weight in other things. So almost 50%, 49.2% by mass of the Earth's crust is oxygen and the compounds that it makes.
Right, because it's a very attachable element, isn't it?
It is. So thank you for that segue. Oxygen.
I wanted to give you that.
Is super electronegative. You know what that means?
It means it has a negative charge and it wants a positive charge to become.
But how does it? But it does it. Why does it get the negative charge? Because
there's more electrons than it has protons, neutrons.
Well, it's
the
term electronegative means basically how attractive the element is to electrons. So oxygen is super electronegative. So basically, the electrons think that oxygen is like
hot stuff.
Yeah. Whoever you want to insert here, I always do like Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie or something, like somebody hot.
They're getting old. We gotta pick.
I know. I was doing that to my students. I'm like, I need to pick some new people because they're probably not. But yeah. So the electrons are attracted.
I was about to give another example, but then my brain just said Brad Pitt again. I was like, yeah. So what about no?
Nope.
Who's considered hot for youngins?
I don't know anymore. Is Bieber still cute? I don't know.
I don't know. So. His clothing line is awful, though.
Well,
looks like
millennials.
Yeah. But to be fair, I am a millennial. I'm technically
not
in that category.
I am not. I'm
just in the
still
older
Gen
part.
X, I believe. But that electronegativity is very important, which makes it very reactive. So the electrons of other things are like, woo, oxygen, you're so sexy, and they like to get together. So that's why you have all these oxides, right? These other compounds with oxygen creating oxides. And the idea that of water, right? So water is super, super awesome, and for a lot of different ways and reasons.
I'm gonna go drink some while you're talking.
Woohoo! So water is a weird compound in that the solid form is lighter, less dense than the liquid form. Right, that's why ice floats. But no other solid of a compound would do that. Their solid is always heavier. Just water.
Cool.
And that has to do with hydrogen bonds and between the water molecules. But that, along with the fact that it has a much higher boiling point than others, it can retain heat a lot more without changing its temperature, which is really good. That's why the temperature around areas of water is much more temperate.
Oh, so it stays the same because
the water absorbs the heat without changing the temperature degree of the water very much. So that's why inland, you get up to 100 degrees places, but by the coast, California, it's like 70 or 80 all the time. And that has to do with water's properties. The main thing that all the cool things about water that we could digress on another time, but is because of the polarity of water. Because oxygen.
Explain what polarity.
So the polarity means it has the two ends are different, right? The North Pole and the South Pole, different. So positive or negative charge.
Okay, right, okay.
So we're going back to the charges. So because the hydrogen and oxygen are sharing electrons.
Right.
It's a covalent bond. So the electrons, like to spend more time with the oxygen than they do with the hydrogen.
Poor hydrogen.
It's just getting left out there. But what that means is that the oxygen side of the particle, or the molecule, is more negative, and the hydrogen side is more positive.
Would that be because hydrogen, correct me if I'm wrong, has only that one electron not field.
Electron orbital.
That holds only 2 electrons versus oxygen that has its second orbital that holds 8?
It can hold up to 8, yeah.
Yeah, so of course the electrons are going to want to hang out because more of them can hang out in that orb.
Yeah, I mean, the oxygen just
so they're not
really,
they're really not hating on hydrogen. No, hydrogen can only hold 2.
Well, yeah, so those electrons are going to want to hang out with all the other guys instead of being by themselves.
Yeah.
So
electrons aren't loners. I mean, they're negative, but
they like to hang around with others. They want to be like
misery loves company. And electrons love company too.
But that polarity of water is what is the basis of almost all the properties that it has, is because of that polarity. So there's the positive and negative attraction. So the negative side of the oxygen in the water molecule will be attracted to the positive side of the hydrogens in another water molecule. So it holds them together cohesively, which is why water will bead up instead of just spreading out.
I like that it beads. It's pretty cool.
And then if you're putting thing in a glass, you'll see the water kind of creep up the side a little bit. That's adhesion. Again, it's being attracted to the other side, all because of the polarity of water. So and that comes down to the fact that oxygen is so electronegative. It's pretty awesome. That was very sciencey.
It was so sciencey. Like, I liked it, but at the same time, I didn't get a lot of it.
You got it all. Maybe.
In my sleep, I'll be like, the polarity of water.
But
like, what?
So back to the percentages. So then how much do you think oxygen is the percentage of your weight?
Well, since a lot of my body's water.
Right. Good logical thinking there.
Not just a hat rack at the top of my body. That's my brain. Yeah, I usually point at my head when I say not just a hat rack, but they can't.
They can't see you.
Sorry, guys. So I'm guessing what? Probably 80% of my body?
88.9%.
Ooh, I was close.
Because our bodies are like
And I didn't even cheat.
70 to 80% water.
Right.
In general. And then, hydrogen is very, very light. It's one of the small, it's number one.
Right.
It's the smallest one. So most of the weight of water, so that your weight, so 2/3 of the human body by mass is because the the weight of oxygen in the water molecule is 88.9%.
So our body isn't the weight of our body isn't 88%.
It's 2/3 of your weight of the human
2/3
body
of your weight
is oxygen.
Yeah.
Because almost 90% of the weight of water is oxygen.
Right.
Right. And then 86% of the mass of the ocean is oxygen. So, because again, water.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So it's a kind of a heavy thing. So heavy.
Man, that's heavy. Well, are you done with biology? Should we talk about its uses?
I think, because I think that's all I got on there. I'll come back to something if we don't, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, uses, it's interesting because it's not as...
Biggest commercial uses for steel industry.
Yep. Because the carbon impurities are removed by reaction with oxygen to release carbon dioxide. Again, because oxygen's so sexy.
It's also used to manufacture nitric acid and hydrogen peroxide.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Which my husband used to use as his mouth.
Ooh, that's gonna taste terrible.
I know, but he's a weirdo. I love you, honey. Also used for antifreeze, polyester, and before PVC, its precursor,
chlorethane.
Chlorethane.
And it makes also epoxyethane or ethylene oxide. That which is antifreeze.
They've also been it's been growing in use in the treatment of sewage
and effluent.
I don't know what they're using it for, though. Do you know?
No, I don't know. They're just treating sewage with it. Here, have some oxygen. Again, it may take up some of the impurities or things that are in there because it's more reactive. It's what I would guess.
It's a great combustor.
Yeah, that's right, because it makes, again, it's not the fact that oxygen, but it supports the combustion of other substances, which is why they say, "Oh, look, it's explosive. It's oxygen."
But it's not the actual oxygen that's explosive.
Right. It's the fact that the oxygen presence makes it more combustive.
So
because you need oxygen.
People talk about like oxygen tanks and how like in movies all the time.
Right. Well, then that'll say those will have the little symbol on it that says flammable.
Right. But it's not the oxygen that's flammable. Is it just like if you put a flame to it,
that burns the organic things that are, because you need whatever might be combustible, you need oxygen for combustion.
Right.
So if you have super concentrated oxygen, it makes that much more viable to happen.
That's another reason why it's so important to our existence, because not only is it in the water that we need and the air that we need, but it's also what fuels fire that kept us warm.
Right. So invent a fire.
Yeah. So, but that's interesting because that is used a lot in like movieisms. Is like oxygen tanks.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, even in Jaws. Isn't that a scuba tank?
Yeah.
They like shove it in his mouth and then it bites down. And
yeah. Well, again, if you put a fire to that or something, then the oxygen is gonna be the fire is gonna consume.
I wonder how the shark or did he put a?
I don't remember.
Was a flare? Was there a flare?
I don't think I've actually ever seen Jaws all the way.
What?
I know.
You're a marine biologist. Come on, it's totally illogical.
It's totally real. We're gonna need a bigger boat. They just saw the really super huge great white shark that somebody was a shark conservationist was diving with and touching in the water. Yeah, so she got a lot of flack about whether she should have been doing that or not.
You can't see my face, but I'm
she's like, oh my god.
I'm looking at her like, why would anyone want to touch a great white shark?
I mean, it's really beautiful. I mean, they think it might have been deep blue, which is the largest one that they've ever that's been documented. But the thing was she was really full. They were feeding on a dead sperm whale. So the great white was probably not hungry.
Yeah,
So,
I
but
still
you
not.
shouldn't be touching sharks in the wild. So that's what she was getting flack for, was that she was trying to show that, they're not terrible things, they're not just man eaters, blah,
yeah,
blah,
right,
blah.
right.
But not really being responsible about, you shouldn't be going around just touching sharks.
Yeah. Well, it's. Have you seen that meme on the internet right now? That's like, the ocean is so salty from all the tears shed from misunderstood sharks.
Yeah.
And then there's a
That's a good
shark like coming out of the. It might be the like a thing from Jaws, and he's like, I just want to be hugged. He's like coming out of the water towards a person.
Oh yeah, no, there's another cartoon or something about that. There's another one like that where it was like, I was just trying to get him a Band-Aid.
I love
Just
the
like
one. I
misunderstood
love
sharks.
the picture of the shark coming out of the water, and it's like documented proof of a shark stepping on a Lego. 'Cause you can see his face. He's like, ah. I don't know how we
That's
got
awesome.
on sharks.
We just watched the Lego movie, and the mom was stepping on Legos, and she was like, childbirth? Stepping on a Lego? Like, just almost up at childbirth. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But back to the oceans. The water, oxygen is 2 times more soluble in water than nitrogen, which is important because nitrogen is most of the air. But oxygen is more soluble in water, which is really important for the dissolved oxygen levels that are in water, which is what fish breathe.
Right.
And everything else. So
Right.
it's really important for life there. And there is, there's more in cooler waters. So you have the polar,
You have higher
oxygen so
level
you have
in
a
colder
ton of
water.
that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. No, I was just talking to a coworker about oxygen in water and how like fish tanks. Like if you buy a goldfish, you can't just put them in a bowl of water.
Yeah. Well, you need to dechlorinate it.
Well, oh, that might be why they die.
Yeah.
I thought you had to like
Well,
introduce oxygen.
you don't
into
necessarily
it.
like you can have a bowl, a fish bowl, and there would be enough oxygen that's getting dissolved into from the air.
From the air? Okay.
Yeah. But that is why they have bubblers and things like
Yeah.
that for tanks, because it does help to.
I was talking to a coworker about it because they got a bunch of tadpoles.
Mm-hmm.
Are the tadpoles going to die because they need to dechlorinate the water?
Possibly.
Ooh, I should let them know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, there's some people can take tap water and they've thrown goldfish in it and they're just fine.
Yeah.
But other times they don't. But that's usually the reason is you need to. That's why they have the dechlorinator. It takes the impurities that we put in the water to keep.
I
it
thought
safe.
it was more of an oxygen level thing, especially with something like a tadpole that's an amphibian that goes through kind of a
Yeah, I mean, it could just in the fact of how your tank is set up and how much air interface there is. If you only have this tiny little hole at the top, then you're probably going to have a
you
problem.
Definitely need.
Yeah, you need an aerator.
Okay.
But if it's an open thing at the top, then you probably
I doubt
don't.
they will because it's first graders. I'll talk to them about
Yeah,
it.
you should.
Okay.
Good job.
Save the tadpoles.
Save the tadpoles. It's okay.
It's gonna be a really sad science experiment if they come back and they're all dead.
Like, oh, it didn't
But
work.
you know what? That's life.
That is. You want to know about life too? Hyperventilation. Don't hyperventilate.
Okay.
Oxygen. Well, so it's not from, think of it like, hyperventilation is too much. You've gotten too much
breathe-
oxygen.
yeah.
No, it's actually because you lose too much carbon dioxide and it disturbs the equilibrium in your blood. So it causes it to increase because putting carbon dioxide in your blood brings it down. Right. That's what ocean acidification is too. Too much carbon dioxide.
Right.
Puts the.
We talked about
lowers it
that, I
down.
think, in our carbon episode.
Yeah. So if you're losing carbon dioxide, it balances that. So the vessels then that lead to the brain narrow and it slows your blood flow, and then you start to hyperventilate.
Whoa.
So it's less to do with the oxygen and more to do with the imbalance, not necessarily too much of one or the other, but an imbalance, which I thought was quite interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
in pop culture, they talk a lot about breathing. There's actually oxygen is used. The word oxygen is actually used quite a bit. There are 12 songs, according to Ranker, that are titled with the word oxygen, just the title.
Okay.
And then, according to lyrics.com, there are 781 lyrics.
Containing oxygen.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Songs.
That's kind of
And,
important.
you got to think about there's a whole network of television called the Oxygen Network.
Oh, that's true. Mm-hmm.
And
Well, I
people
think
really
it
think
lends
about
itself
it.
to because that it is. What do you need for life? Oxygen.
Right.
I mean, that's.
That's the first
And
answer.
if you think about it, that is true. And also, you need water,
which
which is mainly oxygen. So on multiple levels.
Yeah.
So I think they just, especially for artists, they equate that to like you
Life.
need oxygen to breathe. So
They also equate it to love a lot, too.
Well, yeah,
But,
that's the one song that I'm thinking of, and I can't remember what it
love
is.
is
but
oxygen, like oxygen or something.
where she's like basically like I can't live without oxygen. I can't live without you. And I can't remember exactly which one it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah,
I saw a lot of them today. They were all super cheesy.
Well, because you're not really getting deep into the metaphor there.
You're
like, what can I think? Ooh, oxygen. I need to breathe. Okay,
like,
love.
I need you to live. What else do I need? Oxygen.
Oxygen.
Well, I'm like, I need chocolate. You're like chocolate.
Chocolate.
I need you.
Did you know that oxygen is pale blue when it's liquid and solid?
Wait, when it's what?
Liquid or solid? When oxygen itself is liquid or solid. Because remember, every element can be solid, liquid, or gas.
Right. I teach matter. I know.
You just looked a little confused for a
but
second.
I'm trying to think of oxygen as a solid.
I know, but you think of water. Yeah, I think you like that's what I go to. I was like, oh, just water. Oh wait, no, it's not water. That's different. But oxygen, yeah, I've never seen oxygen liquid.
I wonder. Do you know like what temperature it needs to be at?
Negative 297 degrees Fahrenheit to liquefy.
That's very cold.
Very cold.
That's really cold.
That's why we don't see it that way.
That's why.
Yeah, you see it as a gas.
But you know, there's some scientist that was like, I did it. Ooh, it's blue.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And if you breathe 80% or more oxygen for more than 12 hours, it irritates your respiratory tract and causes edema, which is fluid buildup, and then you can die. Too much is a bad thing.
Right. Too much is too bad. Too little is too bad. You know what? The air around us has made it just right.
It's perfect.
Unless you have a medical condition that requires more.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, like my grandmother, for the last 5 or maybe even longer than that, years of life, she had oxygen.
I thought you meant she was still alive. I was like, well, that's not really.
No, she passed away a few years ago. But she had to the oxygen tank because she wasn't being able to get enough from the air because her body just wasn't good at processing it anymore. So they needed the extra oxygen. But if you don't need it and you take it, then not so good.
Here's a question, because you're a marine biologist. Are the oxygen tanks just oxygen, or are they the mixture?
That is no. I believe that, how that relates to marine biology, I'm not sure, but
well, because you went swimming in the ocean. I'm sure you went diving.
Yeah, but we actually didn't because
Scuba?
of my diabetes and stuff. I didn't do scuba until later on in life.
Oh, okay.
Those tanks.
I just assumed that you went scuba diving.
Yeah, well, most people do, and I did towards the end, but of living in Florida.
Towards the end of my life.
Right.
This is my second life.
No, so those tanks are not pure oxygen.
I didn't
those
think
are
they
mixture.
would be
because you can then the nitrous ones are have nitrous gases in it, and that allows you to stay down longer. It's a whole like complicated thing, but those are not pure oxygen. But the tanks for elderly people, those are pure oxygen.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Does it make them less flammable in the water? Not that you could. Well, you can be flammable underwater.
Hello, no, I think it's more of the balance of what you're breathing.
What you need
normally
to be active and swimming
and being able to
and under pressure.
Too much or too little. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And speaking of pressure, thanks for that segue. Again.
I'm so good at
so
this.
Awesome.
I'm not doing anything.
The oxygen molecule can survive pressures of 19 million times higher than the atmospheric pressure. So it's a really strong molecule.
It does really well under pressure.
And so talking about not having enough oxygen, the lowest levels recorded in anybody's blood was in Mount Everest.
Because high elevation.
And it was 3.28 kilopascals, and the normal is 12 to 14.
That's really low. And that person's
so that's why
alive?
People, apparently. Well, that's why people die up there.
Atmospheric, or what's it called? When, like, the sickness that you get from...
altitude sickness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But my husband actually suffered from it just being in Utah.
No, my husband, every time we go back to New Mexico, which is part of the reason why he doesn't like New Mexico, is he's not good with altitude. Yeah. So he gets there. And I
don't think Shane is either.
If you don't hydrate and you don't rest when you first get there, you will feel and altitude sickness sucks.
Oh yeah,
like
he just
felt terrible for days.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He basically just stayed in the hotel room. We went to see his brother swimming, and I went and ran a 5K.
No altitude sickness
while I was pregnant. Very early on pregnant, but still I was I feel fine. He's like, oh,
Yep, that's what he used to do. Is like, nope. I mean, I lived in New Mexico for much of my life before moving out here. So, and in Florida.
In Florida, you've been at all sorts of altitudes.
Yeah, so it never bothered me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I dealt with it in Denver, but that was about it.
Yeah.
But that's all I have.
I have a thing about, just real quick, 300 million years ago when there were huge insects, the oxygen levels, 35%.
So do you think
Had something to do with their ability.
Wait, but I thought I had read somewhere, because I thought I'd read at one point where like they're like, why aren't there giant ants in the world?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's because, that was because of their exoskeletons couldn't handle they wouldn't have been able to handle like the gravity.
Gravity?
Yeah, not gravity. The words. They couldn't handle being that big because they didn't have a skeleton.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. There's a certain level you can't
atmospheric
get.
pressure
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
You wouldn't be able to handle.
How big were these giant insects?
Well, I don't know. I think they had the dragonflies that had like 4-foot wingspans or something like that. Crazy.
I want to see those.
I know. It's so cool.
But only dragonflies. I don't want anything else that big.
Anything other thing flying? No.
I don't want, or just any other giant insect. I freak out when the spider's like the size of my thumb. I'm like, no, go away.
Yeah. The only thing
So
is,
you think the amount of oxygen is why they were able to do that?
It had something to do with that. I didn't write any detail. I don't think they had more details down there. But the oxygen levels were very high, and you also had huge insects. So
coincidence?
Something.
I think not.
Can be correlated. I don't know.
Correlated.
But yeah, so it is extremely reactive. So it forms those oxides with nearly every other element, except for, of course, the noble gases, because they're too good for anybody else.
Which we've talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
Those jerks. Krypton wasn't even named after it.
That was terrible.
That was the
something
worst.
I was not better off knowing.
If you don't know what we're talking about,
go back to the Krypton episode.
Go back to the noble gases episode.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Yeah, and then they get oxygen, like pure oxygen. They get it, and through electrolysis of water.
Right.
And
so basically, the takeaway of oxygen is that like it is extremely important to our ability to survive. However, culturally and historically,
not
a lot there.
No.
Which is fine. This was a more sciencey episode.
Well, you go into the culture of it because without oxygen, we wouldn't be here to have culture.
That's true. Artists hate to break it to you, but
it's all oxygen.
This is kind of why you're able to do art.
Yep.
So,
that's true.
But yeah.
So, oxygen. Go and breathe it.
Yep.
Enjoy it.
Drink it with hydrogen.
Well, they have those oxygen bars. Have you heard about those?
I have heard about it.
Yeah.
Where they flavor the air.
Water. Yeah, so you can breathe
the
it.
Water.
Not the water, yeah.
Yeah. No, I have heard of those. It was
a
a weird
culture thing.
fad for a while.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if this is still going on.
I think it kind of came
like
and went. It was like, ooh, that's weird.
Yeah. Well, because again, you can overdose too. So, I mean, you'd have to inhale that air for
You're
like 12 hours.
We're gonna
or
cut you off.
Yeah.
But it probably wasn't an oxygen bar. It was
No.
probably.
I think they were giving people pure oxygen.
Doesn't that also give you kind of a high?
Yeah, I think so. Well, because you feel like woo, like
your brain's like, buzz, I can function.
Yeah.
And then you're like, and now I'm poisoned. And then,
damn you, oxygen.
It probably would do the opposite of when you don't have enough oxygen in your body, like when you're at higher altitudes and you feel sleepy. It probably gives you that buzz. But then, to have like flavored air, I don't know. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, that's what I don't like flavored water either. So
yeah. Well, I've acclimated to flavored water.
I like my oxygen just plain. The plain odorless gas that it is. So I like my oxygen.
That's same way I like my men, plain and odorless.
Which actually isn't true because, side note, pheromones are quite important because they'll actually, a lot of attraction actually comes from
No, I
smell.
want my men odorless.
No, you don't. Your body does not. It actually wants you to. They actually did that. They did a study.
Do you think pheromones is the same as odor, though?
Well, so that's a whole nother question
See,
because it's the same. Pheromones. It is still a chemical thing. You are. I mean, that's what smell is too. It's a chemical, whether you're aware of it or not.
Which, by the way, my ability to smell is super high right now. Being pregnant, the worst superpower in the world.
Yeah.
The ability to smell things. Except now that I have my cold back,
Oh,
I probably have the average smelling ability.
Perfect.
Perfect.
One good thing. The golden silver lining.
Silver lining of this cold that will never die.
I was just talking to my son about the fact that dogs can smell so good. I'm like, can you imagine being able to smell like a dog? That would be terrible. Like, they can smell like billion times better than we can. They'd be smelling everything. My brains would just
I'm surprised they want to be around us.
And they're still like, oh, you smell so wonderful.
They stick that nose right in there. I'm like, you don't need to do that, man.
Oh, yes, I do.
You could smell my crotch from across the room. You don't have to get right in there. Sorry if that crossed a line, but I mean,
it's true. They do.
Yeah,
they probably
do.
Could,
They just like, stick their nose in anything.
It's your butt. Thank you. But that's how they see the world. Those lovely dogs. So go breathe in your odorless.
So after this episode,
gas.
you go take a couple whiffs, take a couple drinks of your hydrogen bonded oxygen, and
thank whoever you
thank the blue algae in the ocean,
blue green algae,
that we are here today because of oxygen.
Mm-hmm. And that blue green algae, thank the whales for pooping. Because
it all comes back to
poop. That's true. They can't poop at depth, so they come back to the surface and they poop and they fertilize the entire ocean, which fertilizes the algae, which gives us oxygen to breathe.
But that blue
whales are even more awesome.
The blue green algae didn't start with poop from whales because there wasn't any whales.
No.
So I'm
but
saying.
But now they continued.
Now we can thank the whales.
Right. The continued ability for us to live.
Digress, Cindy. Thank the blue green algae that we now have.
And had before.
Oxygen. Mm-hmm. And go get yourself some oxygen today. But don't go watch the Oxygen Network because
that's not very good.
It's not really a good network. No offense.
Like that kind of. I mean, it's okay.
A lot of like true crime kind of stuff. Because I was like, oxygen.com. Oh, it's I was really excited.
Great, the whole website devoted to oxygen.
I seriously was really excited. I was like, I'm gonna get some awesome facts, and then I'm like, why is this talking about this girl's killer?
Terrible.
Because that's
maybe it was oxygen. Maybe she had too much oxygen.
Oh, the odorless killer.
That's right.
All right, we're gonna stop before this goes
south.
Oh, it's gone south. We're about to wrap around the earth and come back up north again. Because of the polar.
Because of the polarity of
the polarity. Yeah, there we go.
Good callback.
Thanks.
Okay.
Anyways, if you weren't scared away from us talking, feel free to like, subscribe. We're hoping to get this podcast on Google Play and maybe Spotify, hopefully.
Exciting.
Soon. But we are on iTunes and YouTube right now.
Yep.
And if you have any hate mail to send our way, you can do so at elementalfunpodcast@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can follow me on my very poorly used Instagram account at runmama.run50x50. Or you can actually learn more about science by following Cindy
at Pacific Mammal Research or PacMam.
Mm-hmm. On
Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So feel free to like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies,
tell anybody, tell a stranger on the streets.
You know, I've been telling all my coworkers, and then I feel bad because I'm like, "Have you been listening to my podcast?" And they're like,
My mom just texted me and she was like, "Hey, so I found your thing on nitrogen on Facebook. Were you supposed to have your video? Was there supposed to be you on the screen?"
No.
Right? Because my mom does not know anything about podcasts or anything like that. So she clicked on it and she said, clicked on it not knowing what on earth it was. And I started talking and she like jumped out of her chair because she wasn't expecting it because it's just the logo on the screen.
Oh, right. Meanwhile, my dad emailed me and he's like, "So I know you can find it on YouTube. Where else can we find the podcast?"
Excellent.
And I was like, "I'll tell you, Dad."
There you go.
So
find more people.
Find more people. Pretty sure iTunes told us that 12 people downloaded our last one.
Yay!
I was one of them.
Well, I'm one of the followers on our YouTube channel, so
It's all right.
It's good.
You know,
Everybody starts somewhere.
we do it for us. We don't do it for you guys.
But we're glad you're here for the ride.
Thank you for coming along.
Okay, we should go by.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
you already said everything.
Once again, thank you for listening. My name is Grace.
My name is Cindy.
And we won't see you.
Right.
Because this is a podcast.
We'll talk to you next time.
We'll talk at you.
Right.
Bye.
Bye. Testing.
Fa, fe, fi, fo, foo.
They're giant?
No, it's like a warm up.
Oh, she's a theater major.
To sit in solemn silence on a dull, dark dock.
Oh, that's just foreboding.
There's even more foreboding. You want to hear the rest of it?
Sure.
In a pestilential prison with a lifelong lock, awaiting the sensation of a short, sharp shock from a cheap and chippy chopper on a big black block.
You theater majors are weird.